Members of the faculty and students, it's a great honor and privilege for me to introduce to you today His Excellency Mikhail Khvostov, Ambassador of Belarus to the United States. He also has concurrent accreditation as non-resident ambassador to Mexico. He has spent over 20 years in the diplomatic service. Prior to his appointment as ambassador to the United States, he spent 3 years as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs. Prior to that, for 3 years, he was in Canada as the Ambassador of Belarus to Canada. So he has had many wonderful opportunities, also served for a year as First Secretary to the Belarusian mission to the United Nations. So a vast deal of experience. We are honored and privileged to have him here at Brigham Young University. Just to give Ambassador Khvostov an idea of our student body, if I could, I'd like to ask all those of you who have spent at least a couple of months living in Belarus to stand. Okay. Now, if you could stay standing, I'd like to add those who have lived in Eastern Europe or speak an Eastern European language, if you would stand as well. And any others of you who have lived abroad or speak a second language. Thank you very much. We have been ensuring the ambassador that we have a very diverse student body that is deeply interested in international affairs. We thank you for your attendance today, and I'd like now to turn the time over to Ambassador Khvostov. It's been a great honor and privilege for me to spend some time with him. He's not only a great ambassador, but a delightfully warm and engaging individual. Ambassador Khvostov.
Thank you. Good morning again. Good morning, everybody. And I, of course, thank Professor Kelly for the introduction he did. It's my pleasure to be with you today to showcase Belarus, young democracy emerged from the former Soviet Union. Many of you visited Belarus, and you have your own impression and experience of being in Belarus. But coming back to the subject, what I can say you about Belarus and Belarus-US relations, maybe after some introductory remarks, I will go on to the political and economic situation. Then I will turn to the foreign policy of Belarus and Belarus-US relations. Belarus ranks 13th in the area size among the European states and 6th among the CIS, Commonwealth of the independent states, with the population amounted to 10 million people. By the territory, we're looking like Great Britain or Romania. Territory is like the territory of state of Kansas, 81,000 square miles. After proclaiming its independence in 1991, Belarus has emerged at the international arena in two capacities. As a new independent state formed through the USSR collapse and as a European country having historical statehood traditions. Because of the geographical location, the interstate relations on the European continent have been governing destiny of our nation through its history. Any conflict resulted in deaths of people and devastation in Belarus. Due to the above, our foreign policy is multi-vector, consistent in developing good relations with Eastern and Western countries. Long-term foreign policy of Belarus includes good relations with Russia and the United States and active involvement in European political and economic processes. We proceed from the belief that stability of the international relations system may be attained only through mutual respect and mutually beneficial cooperation. What is the main achievement of Belarus as a result of our 12 years of independence? The crowning achievement is that we have our own state, and we're really proud to have it. And we have all necessary branches of power to assure its functioning. We lived a very difficult period in our new history, period of creation of Belarusian statehood, and we are living a very challenging period of transformation of our society through transformation, first of all, of socio-economic relations. And this transition to the civil society will need time. To accomplish this objective, we need strong state power for gradual introduction of law and other principles. And without the principles, there will be no place for democracy and human rights. What happened in the early 90s? They were marked by an increase in criminal activities in the regions because of the vacuum in institutions resulting from the breakup of the Soviet Union. The process of privatization of vast state resources took place in the absence of any effective legal or regulatory structure, and many valuable state assets were privatized in insider transactions. Democracy and human rights should mature from inside. It is true the laws of democracy and human rights are universal, but the matters and nations they are applied to differs widely. That's why the main objective of our government is to promote the right of the Belarusian citizens to have a job and to be paid for their job. These are the reality of our time. And the government keeps close eyes on the situation to assure social and national peace in the country. Economic realities. What is the situation in the economy? Maybe some examples. Belarus keeps third place among former Soviet states by GDP per capita in purchasing power parity. Second, Belarus has the smallest extended debt, $770 million. By quality of life, Human Development Index, Belarus is the first within the CIS, third in region, and 52nd among 182 nations. Belarus keeps first place within CIS by protection of motherhood and childhood, second in region, and 21st among 117 nations. That's according to the data of the United Nations Development Programme and World Health Organization. Retired persons in Belarus have the highest pension in the CIS countries. And Belarus keeps second place in the region of the former Soviet Union by Corruption Perception Index, the least corrupt country in the CIS. It proves Belarus has a firm foundation for further sustained development and active participation in global and regional economic processes. Economy of Belarus is oriented at external markets. Export accounts for over 60% in the gross domestic product. The major economic and trade partner is Russia, which accounts for more than half of the total foreign trade of Belarus. The European Union ranks third as a trade partner, full-fledged private sector in the country has emerged. 5.5 million units have been reformed over the last 10 years. The state-owned enterprises are reformed to become public joint stock companies, the share of which are then sold to investors. Private sector employs about 2 million people. Difficulties, yes, difficulties are enormous. Transformation of public sector and private sector does not always produce better results than public. But Belarus remains one of the most economically developed states of the Commonwealth of the independent states. Some words about the foreign policy and Belarus-US relations. The following foreign policy imperatives may be highlighted. First, sovereignty and independence of Belarus, territorial integrity, non-interference into internal affairs of foreign states, good neighbor relations, multi-vector external policy. We have an open society, an open economy. We depend on external markets and relations. The United States recognized Belarus as independent state in 1991. Since that time, we have a history of bilateral relations, which, in my view, needs to be seriously improved. And the only way to improve political relations is to replace the current policy of selective engagement with a policy of constructive engagement, similar to the one being pursued toward other CIS countries, where the situation with democracy and human rights are not better than in Belarus. We need to increase mutual understanding between our two countries, and it can be done only through the cooperation. We have left behind the Cold War and the confrontation between two ideological systems, so we can overcome the lack of political relations between the United States and Belarus in the nearest future. Many times, government was trying to make the relations better. Belarus is the net provider of security and stability in Europe, and I hope that in the nearest future we will be able to develop with the United States much more better both political and economic relations. We, of course, are very thankful to the United States for humanitarian assistance we receive for combating Chernobyl consequences. That's a problem which couldn't be covered only by the efforts of the Belarusian government. We need the international attention to the situation with the Chernobyl problem we are still facing, and the international assistance. Some figures maybe about the participation of the United States in the investments and the trade activities with Belarus. The United States is the largest investor in Belarus by the share of foreign partner in the authorized capital, $98.5 million US dollars, or 16.5%. Then come Germany, Netherlands, and Poland. Also, the United States is the largest investor in Belarus as regards the number of formed joint ventures and foreign enterprises. 521, or about 14%. Then come Poland, Germany, and Russia. Bilateral trade is developing. We are exporting goods to the United States, and we are importing goods from the United States. And balance of trade is in favor of the United States. My belief is that the United States will take a lead and help to enlarge the field of cooperation. And constructive engagement would make it possible to improve relations between our two countries. I'm speaking about the political relations. I'm sure that we have to have better political relations at any possible level. It's very important for Belarus. It will improve the domestic situation, and it will improve international situation for Belarus. Let me just conclude by saying what has been said by the United States President Harry Truman. We all have to recognize that no matter how great our strength, we must deny ourselves the license to do always as we please. These words by the U.S. President Harry Truman are as urgent as they were back in 1945. Maybe some additional facts about Belarus. Economically, we are a developed country. We started to, since the independence, we started to have strong economic relations, first with the European countries, second with the countries of the former Soviet Union, and of course with the United States. And the economy of Belarus is running. Maybe some figures for you just to see how it works. We are the largest producer within the CIS of the wheeled tractors. And by this production, we are keeping 15% of the international market for wheeled tractors. We are selling them everywhere, and we are selling them here in the United States. And by the production of heavy dump trucks, we are keeping 30% of the international market. And we are also selling them everywhere, within the Americas, Asia, and of course many of them are going to the Russian market. Our relations with Russia, they are very important for Belarus because it happens so that the enterprises of Belarus still have very close links with entities in the Russian Federation. First, and politically it's important for us for a small country to have good relations with this big and very important neighbor. Russian market is really very important for Belarus to forward to this market the product we manufacture. Politically, we do have good relations, and vis-à-vis the enlarging European Union, we are taking steps to have the same trade economic regime as it existed before the EU enlargement. That's also important for Belarus because a lot of Belarusian products go to the European market, which is very important for Belarus for the maintenance of the economy and as a market generally. So maybe I will finish and will answer questions if they will be, and they will be, I'm sure. Yeah, please go ahead.
What is the current status of the Russian-Belarus Union, and what's the U.S. and the EU's attitude towards that?
Well, attitude is very peaceful, I would say, calm. Why it happened so? We are speaking about the union state we are trying to stop with Russian Federation. When the former Soviet Union ceased to exist, we were just started to look for the international partners and for the markets for our products. Belarusian economy depends on the international trades. And so the CIS, Commonwealth of the Independent States, has been set up. But up to this day, it is more a political instrument rather than economic. And we decided to go deeper in the economic cooperation with Russian Federation, which is a very important partner for Belarus, as, for example, the United States is for Canada. And really, we are very successful in trading with Russian Federation, in having investments from Russia. Politically, yes, we do have common bodies within the Union states, mostly oriented to develop economic and trade cooperation. So I would say that the attitude of the European Union and the United States are more or less positive. Yeah, please.
Can you tell us about Belarus's policy towards foreign religions?
Towards the religions?
Yes.
Yeah. That's a question I have just discussed with Professor Darkham, who is, as I evaluate, a specialist on the religion laws within the European continent, especially within the CIS. We adopted a year ago a law, and the freedom of religion is proclaimed in the Constitution. As I understand, actually, yes, we may be facing some problems vis-à-vis new groups and non-traditional religion groups which are coming to Belarus. Well, after more than 70 years of non-religion situation within the former Soviet Union and Belarus especially, people really are very happy to have an open access to any religion they can choose. And the time shows that any law adopted regulating so specific field as religion should be amended. So we are looking forward to amend the law together with the international specialists and maybe with the specialists from your institute also. There are a few minor problems, and we know about the existence of these problems, and I think that it may be fixed very quickly.
What kind of government programs are there that determine traditional and non-traditional religions that would be allowed? Are there research groups, people that investigate and determine who is allowed and who isn't allowed in the country?
No, about allowed and not allowed. Everybody is allowed. But it happens so that, well, I don't think that the population of Belarus is 100% belonging to the Orthodox Church. No. Maybe 40 or 45, maybe 50% of the population believe that they belong to the Orthodox Church. 50%. But from this percentage, maybe half of them are really practicing. The rest of them are just believe that they should belong to the Orthodox Church. So by the influence, yes, Belarusian Orthodox Church, which very close to the Russian Orthodox Church, well, that's church number one in Belarus. Then Catholic Church and some other groups which are developing actually. So there is no on the religion in Belarus. The problem maybe is with non-traditional groups, like some groups coming, as you may be aware what happened in Russia and Belarus also with some Japan group. So that shouldn't be allowed and will not be allowed. But situation with the religion freedom is developing, and I'm really happy. Yeah, please.
The United States has set specific, guidelines for that Belarus needs to meet in order to open up relations. And I was just wondering, I mean, you mentioned that Belarus is very interested in strengthening relations with the United States. What is the government of Belarus doing specifically to open up their society in order to increase relations with the United States and the European Union?
Well, I can openly say that this society is open. There is no restriction in Belarus because the economy is open. Problem maybe is that to improve the situation with the democratic process in the country, to develop the NGOs as it happened here in the United States, we need more time. We need more time. And we are talking with the U.S. government on specific issues of the common interest. On the question, we are criticized by the United States government. Actually, we are discussing step-by-step approaches in order to improve the political situation with the both governments. Yeah?
You said that there's no restriction in Belarus. As far as I understand, it's very difficult for diplomats in Belarus to even contact government officials there. I've heard that they're rather kept inside their little world, and that the relations have in fact deteriorated to some extent in Belarus. Is the situation changing? Last I heard, that it was very difficult. That the Americans, if they wanted to talk with
That's something you're saying. It's really surprised me. You mean that it's no allowance to maintain contacts with people of Belarus, or what do you mean by saying that?
I just read that the relations were strained. You said that
Relations with
U.S. diplomats in Belarus.
no, there is no restrictions, and even more. I was the foreign minister previously. I know the actual ambassador George Kroll, and there is no restriction for the U.S. diplomats in Belarus. They can go anywhere they want. They can travel without any notification previous notification. There is no restriction for contacts. That is true, and I can confirm it. Yeah, please.
What is Belarus's position on the war in Iraq, and does it wish to take participation in the reconstruction of
Yeah. We were and still very precautious about any war. The problem for Belarus is that maybe Belarus is the only country within the European continent which suffered a lot from any war. We lost during the Second World War 2.2 million of people. We lost many young people during the former Soviet Union participation in the Afghanistan war. And the participation of the troops of Belarus is in outside operations is prohibited by law, by the constitution. So only parliament can take a decision whether the army or soldiers can participate in any military activity. So we were in favor of the decision of the United Nations for the participation in the military activity against Iraq. And Belarus is a small country, and the opinion of the United Nations is very important for Belarus, very important. So this question, in our opinion, may be and should be regarded and resolved within the UN Security Council. For the participation in the reconstruction of Iraq, it will depend on the position both of the U.S. government as well as the local Iraqi authorities. We do have a lot of products to be forwarded to Iraq for the reconstruction purposes. On some of them, we are discussing with the U.S. government, and I do not exclude that we may participate in the reconstruction by forwarding the products we do have in Belarus, and these products, as we believe, is really needed in Iraq. Please.
Mr. Ambassador, I know in the past the Belarusian economy has been greatly dependent on Russia for energy sources. Has that situation changed at all?
Well, I cannot say that the situation is radically changed. We are still dependent on the supplies from the Russian Federation, especially vis-à-vis gas and oil. That was the situation with Belarus within the former Soviet Union. We do have two biggest refineries, oil refineries, in the European continent and Belarus, but we do not have our own oil. It's a problem. It's a problem. Now we are looking forward to diversify the supplies, but to have gas and oil from Russia, it's much cheaper for Belarus. And I don't think that in the nearest future we will radically change the situation. We are really happy to have good trade and economic cooperation with Russia. It's sort of promotion for Belarusian economy. But I think that soon Belarus will be ready to pay for gas and oil, well, for gas at the international prices for Russia. And my opinion is it will be healthier for the Belarusian economy. For oil, we are paying the prices, market prices for Russia. Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Wondering if there, I know that Russian is the official language of Belarus. I'm
Right.
wondering if there is any resurgence or legislative measures on the table to promote the use of Belarusian in schools, in society.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on that? Is there anything that's happening right now to increase the usage of that Belarusian?
It's a very good question. Yeah, it's a question on which the government takes the open eye. And it's a good question because it's a problem. It's a really problem for Belarus, for, well, small country, to have two state languages. And, of course, in this situation, one will always prevail. That's normal situation. And what happened in Belarus when we gained independence in early 90s, well, 95% of the population still use Russian as language for communication. So there is no way to stop this situation, but by improve the situation at the preschool institutions and within the school system. What the government decided to do, actually, in all kindergartens we have in Belarus, Belarusian language is introduced and as the main language for the education. We were trying in the different ways. First, we decided that it's up to the families, it's up to the mother or father to decide what language or what school will their child take when entering a school. But it happens so that, of course, with Russian language is more scientifically developed, that is true. And of course, more possibilities are opening to those who use Russian language as the first language for communication or for doing studies. But actually, government decided that the involvement of the government should be at the level of the kindergarten, and the decision has been taken. Now the process is developing. Also, language is supported. You may have Belarusian school as a school for education, or Russian school where the Belarusian as language is obligatory for being studied. But it's a good question, and we are looking forward to resolve it. Yeah?
I read an article yesterday in the Wall Street Journal that after the attacks in Madrid and Spain, and this sounds obvious, the economy was affected by the attacks. Does the economy in Belarus was affected as well?
Well, it's very sad what is happening in this world with terrorist attacks and acts and terrorist activities. We are, of course, blaming this terrorist approach. Of course, I think that any economy will be affected by the size of this terrorist attack. It's sort of fear, political, social, and economic, and of course, it may be a negative impact on the economy.
What is Belarus doing to promote democracy and increase its legitimacy in the worldview, considering the recent elections of Alexander Lukashenko?
Well, partially you are maybe right, but mostly you are wrong. The international community has never said that the presidential elections in Belarus were held in the non-right way. There were the report by the OSCE, which is saying that elections in Belarus didn't meet all demands or all principles specialized at the OSCE documents. That is true. That's the reality all the time. Take any country of the former Soviet Union, vis-à-vis the electoral process, you will find a lot of problems, as in the United States. I was surprised when I learned that the population of DC are deprived from the participation into the electoral process to the Congress. That's something to be improved in every country. Belarus it is not a good exclusion, but if you take any electoral process, both parliamentary or presidential, in Russia, in Ukraine, in some other countries, you will find a lot of problems we are in Belarus facing. To improve the situation, well, first we are developing the dialogue with the OSCE. We propose to the OSCE to have its office in Minsk, and it is active. Through this office, we are improving the national law, and we are also talking with the U.S. government about the electoral process in the country.
To qualify my statement, the Bush administration at least did call up the election of Lukashenko fraudulent and a sham, and about the repressive policies of Lukashenko towards opposition. Is there anything to illustrate then?
We know that, yeah, but it's also the differences, how to say, between claims and evidences on the ground.
Can we describe the democratic studies one that would allow any claim to be given in opposition to an authoritative figure such as Lukashenko, that citizens of a nation have the right to make those claims? That is an important component of democracy.
Now, when Lukashenko proposed his candidacy as for being re-elected as president for Belarus, there were three, and before him, and he was fourth. So, population had a real choice, and it's up to the people to decide who will be the president. That's the situation in any country. Yeah.
How would you just follow up on his question? How does the government of Belarus react to the two former presidential candidates who have sought asylum inside the United States and have made numerous reports of harassment and persecution?
I'm not aware about the presidential candidates being in the United States. Maybe former Belarusian officials or sort of.
I'm sorry that I don't remember their names in the re-election campaign of Alexander Lukashenko. Two presidential candidates disappeared, and at least one of them sought asylum in the United States because of repression that he blames on the
What we know that, well, two of them, they had the permission from the U.S. government to live here. Sharetsky, the former chairman of the former super Soviet, what we call, former head of parliament, I would say, Sharetsky, and Another one is Pozniak. Pozniak, who was just member of parliament. Yeah. What is attitude of Belarus? Well, it's this is the decision of the United States. Nothing to do with this. That was the will from both of them to live here. God bless them. Yeah.
What is the relationship economically and politically like with the Baltic nations, and how is that going to change, if at all, as they join the European Union this year?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I pointed it out very shortly that Belarus will be soon. It will happen May 1st. Will be bordering the European Union through the borders with Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. And the main problem actually is that bilateral treaties will cease to exist between Belarus and Poland and Lithuania and Latvia. And that will be negatively, of course, affected the economy of Belarus. That's why we are trying to first hold the negotiations with the European Union officials about how to minimize the negative consequences for the economic cooperation. And we are going another way, bilateral. We are negotiating the same process with Polish, Lithuanians, and Latvians officials. But it may be a problem, yes.
I think I'm going to call this as the last question because the time is spent, and that's okay with you.
I'm okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
Does Belarus have any intention of attempting to join the EU or working toward that?
Yeah, it will be very naive to expect that Belarus or Ukraine or Moldova or Russia, imagine, will be accepted as the EU member for the very specific reason. The EU is enlarged, and I don't think that it will be very easy for the EU to deal with the new economies which will come as the EU partners. We expect that this question may be raised by Belarus in some 10 years, when the economies of the Eastern countries, former socialist, I would say, country, will be fixed with the economies of the European Union countries.
Thank you for answering my first question. Maybe I'd just like to know, what do you think one of the biggest successes that Belarus is experiencing? What is one of the biggest problems that your country faces? The success and the problem.
Yeah, okay. Problem is Chernobyl. It happened so that this problem happened at the territory of Ukraine, but 75% of radioactive precipitation fall out on the territory of Belarus, and we are living with this problem. It's a lasting problem. That's why we need the international attention and involvement. And I'm again thankful for this church, for the humanitarian assistance we receive from them. And the success of Belarus is that Belarus is the independent state. That was a real success since the early 90s, and we are really very happy. I thank you for your participation and your willingness to know more and more about Belarus. We do have problems, but we do need assistance from this great country. And you are very welcome in Belarus.